Well, hey everybody, thanks for joining me again. It's Tammy with you, and we are working on Clara's Boho journal, and this is video number 8 in the series, and I will link the playlist to this so you can see all the videos that led up to this moment in time. I am done with the pages and the decorating of the whole book, and now I'm going to put on the cover and the spine. And there's lots of different ways you can do this because creativity is an art, not a science. I'm just going to see how it feels as I go along. At first I was thinking about starting the spine first, and then I was like, no, I need to do the covers first, because you can have the spine over this part, you can have the spine over the covers, or somewhere in between. I've done it all ways. So what I have so far is a couple of pieces of cereal box board, and these are going to be my front and back covers, and I've made it smaller than my book because this is going to be decorated too, and then I just wanted everything to show beyond this, and we'll see what I end up doing with this. My Life cereal, I have eaten thousands of boxes of Life cereal in my lifetime probably, and I won't bore you with the details because that's 10 seconds of your life you're never going to get back. What I'm going to start with is some padding. My cover, in my mind, I don't have a super formulated plan. I'm just going to have to see how it plays out. But my initial thought is that I'm going to use ribbons, laces, and fabrics that I use from inside the book, and we will see how I want the cover to be quite collaged and quite textural. So we'll just see how it goes. It's going to be this work in progress, right? I am the queen of using things up. So I have just this light quilt batting that I've obviously used on some of my sewing projects, and I've kept the bits. So I'm going to just probably lay a couple of plies, maybe, we'll see. I want the cover to feel like it's fairly squishy, and all I'm doing at this moment is just basically lightly tacking everything down with glue sticks so that I can see how it comes together and then start to build on it from there. So I will end up sewing everything with my sewing machine, but if you don't like to sew, and if you have a good adhesive, I use my tacky glue, and it glues paper and fabric. Or if you've got fabric glue, you can certainly skip the sewing part if you're not a sewer. So I'm just going to patchwork these bits in here because I find that fun, and I'm using up little scraps of batting that I would, not otherwise use. I guess that's part of the junk journaling philosophy, right? Is we're using things up, using things that might go in the garbage. I'm going to do the same thing to the back. I don't know if you can hear this, probably not. But I have a neighbor that enjoys sitting outside on their patio and playing a didgeridoo, sometimes for hours at a time, and they have just started. So I can hear it, and if you hear something slightly strange, that's what it is. All right, nothing super precise. These covers are extremely forgiving, right? This style of what we're doing. What I've decided to do next is I have like 2 meters, I think, of this nice royal blue felt. And I think I'm just going to put a layer of that on top of this. The color's beautiful. It's just going to be kind of a base for me to build upon, just you know, just so that I know that I don't have this showing, because I'm using fabrics. And I am going to fold this over, because in my initial stages I just want to make sure that the sides of my cereal box are covered. Because I don't really know how this is going to turn out. This is out of my comfort zone, planning and doing in the moment on camera, but I'm going to do it anyway. So yeah, and so let's first just tack this down lightly. And then I don't want a super amount, and then I'm gonna have like, you know, my front cover, and I am gonna have a back to this as well. So there's quite a lot, for me anyway, that goes into making the covers. Okay, then and of course, this is all going to get sewn and glued again, but these clips are just helping me to tame this, because the glue takes a little bit longer to dry when it's on fabric. And I'll just tuck that up just to make sure my corners are, yeah, nice and sharp. Oh, I can already feel this cover's gonna have some meat to it, which is gonna be nice. Okay, so I've got my top and my bottom cover all done, nice and padded. Everything's glued on. So I'm gonna start on the easy side, because, you know, it takes a little bit to lay this all out and figure out what to do. So I'm gonna work on the back, and I've just got a nice piece of my boho fabric with a nice selvage edge there. And I'm just gonna sew this on. I'm gonna have the spine is gonna come over top of my covers, and then I'm gonna just sew on another piece of the selvage, being careful not to, oh, I love how that looks. Came like that. And then I'm gonna put some gold underneath. And this is craft ribbon that had wire in it. I took the wire out, and yeah, I think that's good. So I'm gonna go sew this. So I've got my pieces sewn on. This is gonna be a bit of a wild cover. I'll just take some of the threads off. Not all of them, because, you know, I'm going for that kind of look. Okay, well, this is a decent amount to sew through, but it's fine. You just have to take it easy on your machine. So that's the preliminary of my back sewn on. Let's lay out the front. So my back's gonna go here, spine's gonna be on this part, that's why it's rough. And then let's just go with this. I've got the same kind of thing going on as my base for the front. Some of those nice selvage edges, top and bottom. And then I've got an idea too. I took the hidden paper clip that I made in a few tutorials back, and I added the two remaining boho beads I had left over to it. And then I added a bunch more to make it, you know, kind of bring lots of stuff together, lots of elements. And I've got this strip of fabric, I've sewn some cardstock to the back, and I am going to slip it on like this, and I probably will end up gluing it because I need to attach these because I don't want these just flying all over the place when I want them to be part of the cover. So I'll just sew the base elements on first, and then we'll see where we go. So I've got my top and my bottom. These are my base layers. I put some of this floral gold kind of ribbon there, and I put a little bit of that ribbon, sewed it on the top. Okay, loving that. So those are the fronts. That's what my backs look like right now. So let's focus on the front. So I have a couple of ties. Those are going to go between this top, and then I'm going to put a layer there. So that's going to go in there. So of course, not forgetting that, because I have a bit of a history of forgetting to put my ties on. So I just want, I think I'm going to have to sew, yeah, I want my belly band. So I'm just going to go away and sew this little pocket right about there. Okay, my pocket's on, and this wild belly band is, this wild hidden paper clip is kind of, yeah, my focal point. But I think I want to have something just a little bit fancy at the bottom. Okay, I've just sewn a bit of that Wirecraft ribbon-y stuff, gold, on the bottom, because I just want it to be a little bit fancier when it comes out the bottom. So that's kind of cool. It is removable, and maybe I'll leave it that way. Why not? I can just attach my beads to this pocket, I think, and then I can just sort of tack them down with a couple of stitches. So yeah, so that they're not too wild. So far, that's my front, and I will, assess it as I go along and see what else I like the look of, or if it needs something. You never know how it's going to end up. So for the spine, let's just take a little moment to think about the spine. So I've got that super glittery gold fabric stuff, glitter fabric, and then I have this really beautiful trim. So what I want is this to be over top of this and going over to the front, and then the spine's going to be like that, and then we're going to go over to the back, and then I'm going to have another row of this, and it's just glorious, and the spine is going to be super shiny. So why don't we just lay that out a little bit at this moment. I've measured my spine is, I don't want to, squish it or pull it too tight. It's about almost 3 inches there, but I don't feel the need to squeeze it in. So I'm giving it a generous amount. I've made it 5 inches by just under 7, and I'll just, let there be some ease there, because we don't have to squeeze things. So this is pretty simple, this part so far, depending on what else I decide to do. I know I've got my dangle. This is the dangle that's going to go off the spine. And so we'll see if I, like, maybe I'll just punch a hole and put an eyelet in. Maybe I'll feel the need to put some more on. Not sure yet. Let's just get this going. And this is kind of how I do it. It just, you know, you kind of have to go with what you feel in the moment. I do find the spines and covers to be fairly daunting, just because I'm not sure if I want to have my spine over, depending on how my cover evolves, or if I want it under. You know, you can do it multiple different ways, so you kind of have to see how it starts to play out, and then it kind of reveals itself from there. Okay, so I've gone ahead and attached my spine to my front and back cover. That's the way I decided it was going to work best. And so my spine is sewn here and here. It's hard. I changed my thread. I put on my big girl pants and I changed the thread because sometimes, like, I hate that part the most about a sewing machine. So I've got 2 lines here, so it's nicely secured to my cover. I put a few dabs of glue under these beads because I decided I didn't want them flopping around on the cover. Here's my journal. So let's just have a quick look at how this is looking. So if I just put it in here, for example, and I go over here, look at that. The spine is beautiful. It's the right amount. I'm certainly not finished yet, but I'm happy with how that's turning out. And I wanted to show you, for example, and I will link my journal flip throughs playlist so that you can have a look at these flip throughs if you want. But I just wanted, as an example, to say there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's how you want to do it. There's multiple ways to attach a spine and a cover. So for Ilse's journal, I have the spine coming up and it is coming through here, and it's kind of in between this and this, whereas the one I just did is going to be over top of the cover. This one is under the cover, and then I put the cover on. And the same thing with Felicity's journal, which is even more different. I ran the spine underneath, and then I actually built the cover right on top of my last page. So for example, I would have put the cover right onto here if I did this one the same, and I would glue this right to here, but I'm not doing that. I'm doing it separate. So, you know, there's different ways to do this, and for the 3 different ways I've done it, they always work out. So now I've got my cover, and I want to put a little bit of felt on the spine. And I'll probably just make my felt a tiny bit shorter than the ends, because I don't really want it hanging off the top of my gold spine. So let's see, and I'm just gonna, oh yeah, wow, my cutting was crazy. Crazy cutting, and now it's too wide. Oh my goodness, look away, don't look at this, it's horrible. Okay, so I think that's nice. It's just going to, yeah, just give a little more substance. And oh my gosh, I can't even cut straight. What's up with that? I'm gonna glue this because it will be kept in place when the book is together. So this is gonna keep it secure. Let's just put a little bit in there where I cut wrong. This isn't scientific. It's just, you know, it's just a nice piece of padding, so it doesn't have to be precise. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry then. Now I'm starting to think about attaching this all. It's getting to that point. And I'm going to incorporate these as well. And these I am going to, am I gonna sew or glue? I don't know, they've got, I think I could probably sew them. Although I'm kind of afraid to sew them because you know how sometimes you sew things and they move around a little bit, and I just do not want to tempt that. So I think I'm gonna put them on after, yeah, because they don't need to go on right now anyway. So let's see how this is gonna start to go together with my book. Okay, so something I need to remember is my ties, my journal ties, and I need a liner for the front page, inner, and a liner for the back, and then I'll need to put something on this page. So what I want to do is I think I'm just going to have a nice piece of this same boho fabric. I think I might put a piece of felt on here too, and my boho fabric will come across, and it's going to come across here as well. So it's going to be my hinge, and then I'll put something here. Note to self, when you're trying to do straight lines, use your rotary cutter. That's what they're for. All right, I've got my nice pieces of felt that are just going to pad my inner lining, because this is obviously going to be a nice soft book. I like it. This is going to get glued over with the fabric, so just a little bit to attach it. Of course, you could just do all this with paper, but since you're my captive audience and we're doing Clara's journal, then this is how it's going to go. So we will put our ties on because we do not want to forget that. It's not the end of the world if you forget it, because you can always work around, you can always add it after, but it is funner just to do it right the first time. Making sure that my fabric is the correct way, because you wouldn't want it to be wrong side out. Okay, so I think this is looking like a journal cover, and like none that I've ever made, which is always fun. I'm just going to make sure that there's glue right to the edge here. There's not going to be a lot of tension on it, honestly, but I just like knowing that everything is secured down nicely. Let's let this dry for a minute. I need to have an inner page here and an inner page on the back. And so I think what I'm going to use is just something decorative. So my first page has got this on it. So how about, oh, that looks pretty nice. And I can always decorate this in some way if I want, but right now I just need to get the paper on it so that I can work with my cover. Can always go back and add more, which is what we do sometimes. Trick is just finally knowing when to stop, right? Okay, it's about that much, I think, because I'm making sure that I'm carrying this over this ruffle that I've sewn. And yeah, I wanted it to just be, I just need a tiny bit off actually, because I want to have my hinge attach to this paper and then to that, just so that it's, you know, kind of attached on multiple levels of this. So that looks fine and the size looks good. My other inner covers I've done, you know, like they get pretty fancy, and by that time you're doing the inner cover and you're wanting the project to be done. So, and then you don't want to get yourself bogged down. I mean, unless you want to, but for me, I'm excited about this being finished and moving on to the next one. So I don't want to create for myself another big thing to do. Oh, this book smells like cloves and cinnamon and orange and frankincense. That's very nice. So I want to use the back of this bag because I've got it in the rest of my journal and it's very pretty. Slight error in cutting measurement, but that's okay because we can just add a tiny bit more. Okay, I've got a nice back lining and a nice front lining, and if I add any of the thing to those in the end, you'll see it in the final flip through, of course. Next, I want to put my fabric liner on here and have my hinge about an inch and a half extra. How about that much? Okay, so that's my front liner. This is my book. You know what, I think I'm just going to put a paper hinge on just underneath the fabric hinge. You know, it just feels like that's something I should do. Okay, I didn't want to get ahead of myself there, so I sewed these two beautiful strips on that lacy stuff. So now look at the back of it's got all kinds of sewing and stuff, and actually I secured this as well, so that's fine. Because I'm gonna get pretty close to attaching this to my book, I thought I better stop because I still need to put on my dangle and decide, you know, how complicated I want to get. I mean, this is pretty nice. I could just put an eyelet on, or I was thinking of just running maybe a piece of velvet ribbon and just hanging it from the velvet ribbon. Let's just put in a hole with an eyelet. It would be nice if it was kind of centered. Okie dokie. Now on my other journals, I really busied up the spine, and you can, but you know, I just thought it kind of is really nice like this, so I didn't really think that I wanted to add a bunch of stuff under it. So we'll see. I may add something, or I may just call it good at being super shiny gold. Love the way that sounds with all the jingle bells. And I had to move my little bead out of the way because of course it was kind of in the way from my sewing machine. That worked out okay. And I think I'm going to put a little bit of a heavier hinge on this because, I don't know, it just feels right. Feels like the right thing to do. Nothing precise about this. The only thing I'm going to make sure I do is fold this both ways so it's nice and flexible. Okay, now we're getting down to it. This part is exciting, but it gets a little scary because you don't want to make a mistake at this point. But I think I've got everything on that I wanted. I'm just making sure that I run this right nicely so that my hinge is glued right to the edge there. Oh, this is feeling really nice. Yeah, I'm going to get my book all together here, and then I'll let it sit. Last thing we're going to do is attach the fabric liner. I'm just going to make sure that I press it in there so it's right in the fold. Okay, so I've gone ahead and glued my fabric liner to the inside of the cover, and I've got it coming across. It's over top of my hinge, and the book is pretty much done. Spine and cover done. I'll have a look at all this tomorrow and see if I want to change anything or add anything. And if I do, you'll see it in the flip through for sure. So stay tuned for that, where you'll get to see this whole beautiful book in its magnificence. See you then.